Welcome to Under the Influence.
Now you're just being a smartass. Oh, I'm rolling. I'm leaving that in. I'm leaving all that in.
Oh my good.
All right, my levels are good. I'm good if you're ready.
Yes, I am
everything's
ready.
Good. Okay,
I am ready.
roll in.
So we had a very popular guest last week.
Smitty.
Yes,
Yeah.
Randall Smith. A lot of the ladies, we got a lot of messages from ladies wanting to know his deal.
Yeah, that's how you know they only watch the highlight clip that we posted.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
because I was like, if you listened, we mentioned his lovely, beautiful wife and children.
Exactly.
But today I wanted to do a little bit of a touchback.
Back to the original one-on-one.
Yeah, back to the original 101 and talk a little bit more about origin. And I know a lot of people love to hear about your history with your work, but I think I want to talk about Under the Influence and how some of the stuff I'm doing right now kind of plays into that as well.
Yeah, I think people would be surprised to find out how like your music and the kind of socials that you've been working on for the last year are really like the beta test for what I'm trying to do for the corporation and how we can advertise and do some things. So you've been kind of the guinea pig for Under the Influence as a company and how we brand, particularly cannabis companies.
Been happy to be the guinea pig.
Yeah, it's worked really well.
No, it's been really fun. And I think even before this podcast, we would sit on our couch at night and kind of encourage each other and come up with ideas and bounce creative plans off of each other. And it wasn't until like just being around you and how you think about branding and how you think about putting yourself out there in a marketable and a way that makes sense. That's helped my career a ton, and it's made me want to learn more about what's effective. And so I just think it's fun to have. I think people would think our careers, they'd be surprised to think of
How different we are personality-wise and showmanship-wise.
Yes.
But how much they overlap in reality.
Thank you. That was difficult for me to say, but that was exactly what I was talking about.
Well, that's why it works. It's a great example.
Yeah.
That was almost too corny for me to even get out.
That's why it works. This is a great example.
Wow. I said something really nice. You said something really mean. It seems to slide in every now and again. No, I think people would be surprised at how much overlap there is. And I think you were dealing with an industry that's kind of similar. Like, it's not that you have advertising restrictions in music. There's just so much content everywhere. And there's so much showmanship and braggy and like kind of this old school mentality of like, I'm going to be as big as I can and somebody's going to notice me and then I'm going to be on a runaway train. And
it wasn't until I realized what was working in the social media and online marketing space that I realized why I was frustrated with my music career from before. And I didn't know the reason. I knew I was frustrated. I know I would come to you.
But talk about a musician. Sorry, I'm cutting right in to ask you a question because it's going to fall right in.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff, like what I love about the podcast is I've asked you a lot of these questions, but never framed it in with this like perspective in mind. So tell me about what it's like. And I know you're not going to brag as much as I probably would, but you know, like when you're an athlete, like I was a high school athlete, decent high school athlete. But I knew that was kind of the end of the road, maybe a little D3 ball if I wanted to, but it seemed like that's where I was, where you actually had a skill set that you knew you could do for the rest of your life and continue to get better. But what is the expectation of someone like coming out of high school who's a little bit of a hotshot singer that everybody knows? You know, we had someone like that in our high school. Everyone was talking about how Montel Jordan had signed her, and you know, and who knows if any of that was even true.
Right.
In fact, I'm sure it wasn't. And what could Montel Jordan do for someone at that point? Probably nothing. But anyway, back to you. You had a skill set that you knew you could do for a very, very long time, but then the expectation that,
I think that
I didn't finish the question, but you know what I want. I want to know, what was your mindset coming out of high school?
My mindset was, I was already frustrated. I think whereas where you knew you've always wanted to start a company, but you just didn't know what, I knew from the time I could speak or walk, like I wanted to be a singer. And so I think a lot of it has to do with what the music industry was like in the 90s when I was growing up, and where it was this plug and play type of situation where you have
stories of people being picked up at the mall and be like, yep, she was the one, we loved it.
And because you have the boy bands and the Britney Spears, and there was a formula that worked, and it didn't matter who you plugged into that formula, but that was pretty much the only avenue to make you pop star or
because how else would you get in front of people? This is pre-YouTube, you know what I mean? Like the
social media, everything. So I think honestly, as embarrassing as it is, I kind of thought by the time I was 20, 21 that I would for sure be one of those people. It was
Like
just
straight up the next Christina Aguilera
Yeah.
type.
Yeah. And looking back now, that's ridiculous. But in my mind, it was like, well, this is what I want to do. And I was surrounded by a lot of really talented people too, but they didn't have the same kind of drive, like balls to the wall, I'm doing this no matter what kind of attitude that I did. But I also think that got me, I was so naive and green about the industry, that got me into a lot of really stupid situations where I thought, just believed people like,
Candyman.
working with
I'm
Candyman.
definitely gonna. We should have queued up this.
Oh my gosh, I should go find it.
Yeah.
But when
You didn't sing that background in that song, but they need a
No.
little context because he was basically
He was
trying to remake
it.
that song, the only hit he ever had. Sorry, Candyman, if you're out there. I don't mean to hurt your feelings.
No, he's frustrated with me because I wouldn't sign a
Sign off
deal
on it, yeah.
that I only worked exclusively with him.
Yeah.
As a 19-year-old. Anyway, so it was just kind of a series of letdowns is what it came down to. And it wasn't until
Is that because the expectations were kind of pointed in the wrong direction, or because it just
Yes.
wasn't working?
expectations pointed in the right or in the wrong directions and just not meeting the right people. It was people that it was like way more in the hip hop industry. And I was a songwriter, and I was fine singing hooks and doing that, but it was a lot of kind of grandstanding and
Yeah.
not a lot of actual, movement in that direction. Anyways, so it wasn't until I begrudgingly went to college because I was thinking coming out of high school,
Yeah. Why would you do that?
oh, it was so I'm like, I want to sing. Like, there's no college that says you can go here and become a singer.
Yeah.
you know?
Which one gets me to Capitol Records?
Exactly. There's lots of classical, and there are some contemporary schools, but for the most part, I had friends that wanted to be in business or
Lawyers or
there's a path, and so I was frustrated that there was no path that I saw. So I ended up spent my first year there was a couple small music schools that I went and checked out, but that didn't feel right to me. And I spent my first year out of high school working at the radio station at 106.1. I figured if I could be close to the industry.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. But I did that. And then I ended up working for the Grammys, the Pacific Northwest chapter. I think that might have been after college. Anyways, I was working a ton and ended up going to WSU. I visited a friend over there, and I was just working and not really getting anywhere and going to school, but just community college. And so I ended up transferring to WSU that next year because I would go visit friends and all they had to do was study. And I'm like, this is amazing. I want to come do this.
Yeah. College is awesome.
Yeah. So
Almost too awesome.
It is. So I went there and joined the music program. And I hated it, but there was one group that I got to do. It was pretty embarrassing, a review of sorts. But that's where I started to teach myself to play the piano and write songs. So I would just lock myself in a room and work through songwriting. And then after college, I made my first album. And that was when, again, going back to expectations, I figured
There it is.
it is.
I put it out there.
I've made this album. Now things are going to happen. And I didn't know anything about promotion or distribution or what it really means to put out projects. Long story short, I've made a couple of albums, a couple of singles, and it wasn't really until my last EP that I did it right. And that was after, 4, 5, 6 years of longer than that of trying to figure out how to do it. But even though it was...
When you say trying to figure out how to do it, what you mean, well, I assume what you mean is like recording in a professional setting where it's your music and it's your sound and it's something that represents you. Is that doing it right?
I mean, I don't know. Yes, in my opinion, it was...
I think, or with a
this is
proper...
mine.
And I was I was around for that, so this part's kind of fun for me. But it was the record release. It was doing the preview party at the recording studio.
It was building anticipation. It was kind of bringing people along. That was my first Kickstarter that I did, and that was really great for bringing people along on the journey. But after that, I was getting frustrated because music is so subjective. You put something out there, and who's to say one song is better than another, or one may get picked up for a sync deal. Anyway, but the formula is not the same. I've found a lot of people still kind of waiting on the sidelines to get discovered or have someone pick them up. And I would find myself in that trap too, of just be like, I don't want to do another Kickstarter asking the same people to give me the same money to do this over and over again. And I was lucky enough to play venues around Seattle that I've dreamed of, but then it was like, I wasn't getting any further. My career wasn't progressing in a way where people outside of my, 100 to 300 people that would come to shows know me. So, and I think that was right around the time that we met. And I would get really down of just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pouring money into a project that doesn't have any return and there's no analytics or anything. And, you made a lot of helpful
I used to get frustrated
Yeah.
at that because I remember coming to you multiple times to say, what did you do today that would change that situation? Like, and you would,
I was like, there's nothing to do. I can't do anything.
and you'd figured out a little bit of really what is marketing yourself to like build some anticipation for the record release and all of that. And then I think you think like, well, the engine started or the snowball's rolling,
Right.
so let's see how big it gets. And it doesn't always keep rolling. Like you've got to keep pushing it along. And that's what used to frustrate me. It was like, I'm this age, or I want to do this by this point, and these are my goals and what I wanted to do here. And I thought, I don't think that you have done something today that would push you towards that.
Right.
Like who the heck do you have to blame right
Yeah.
now other than yourself? And that's hard. Like when you really love someone and they're like kind of down on themselves, it's like, they're the only person you can't stop them from picking on you.
And the missing link there that had been there the whole time is there was no blueprint for me to follow. And so I'm like, well, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah, you used to say that to me all the time.
I'm doing all the things, but if someone would just give me a punch list, like do these things and this will lead to X. And it's a lot easier now because there's so many different platforms, and the music industry or labels as a whole don't really have nearly the control that they used to have.
Yeah.
So, anyways, coming back to this last year or so, with my YouTube channel, with my social media, and I've just really, really been pushing. I want to create a brand, not just a brand, but what can I do to get my presence out so that people, if I release a song, I already have people that want to hear it, as opposed to making the song and then saying like, hey guys, come listen to this song. You don't know me, but come hear this. And so the whole influencer realm, or influencer is a term that you hear a lot now, but growing up, I'm 32. So I didn't really grow up with the whole millennial mindset where you post everything. And, but talking to you about building a brand and what that entails, and realizing that my dreams and my goals now are way, way different than just being a singer or just being a songwriter.
Almost that feels, to me, that feels flat. Like I always thought you would be great on talk shows, like even just as a guest on talk shows, like as a musical guest, but then also you could host one. Like you always seem like that. You're great on the podcast. I think, and it would be like almost like Jimmy Fallon, like you're over the top. I don't think most people know like how well you can dance, like straight up dance, and or your ability to see something once and be able to replicate it over and over again.
But my memory when you tell me something
doesn't work that way. But if you watch a music video, you can pretty much do the whole dance in a like one or two watches. Like it's crazy to me how fast and how much you still remember of all of it. Anyway, yeah, my point, I don't know what my point is, but I think just people would be surprised at like how multifaceted you are. And that's why I think like as a society, we look at an actor who puts out a song and go, whoa, they can sing. Like most actors
of course
have been singing and performing and doing this their entire lives. It's like, that's just one of the, it's like, oh, he's a really good basketball player. Wow, I didn't think he'd be a good wide receiver. Yeah, because he's fast. He can jump out of the gym. He's got great hands. He's an athlete.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. He was a good high school. Yeah. So,
and to your point that you say a lot of times is like a lot of the athletes that are really successful right now aren't utilizing their platform to build a brand to sustain them past
the most
when their
frustrating thing. Randall's a great example of that. If Randall, while he was still playing, would have been active on Facebook and talking about things that he was passionate about, that ripple effect of the audience that he had, it's amazing in sports. Like when you're not a starting professional or even in the league anymore, you fall off. In fact, Steven Jackson was online today saying, I had a major break in my life, and there's so many of you that stopped paying attention to me and stopped returning my calls once I was out of the league, once I wasn't, hanging out with superstars.
Yeah.
And he's like, and don't start calling my phone tomorrow. Don't call when you hear what happened. All of you that never called back, I remember you. And it's like that's an effect that happens a lot to athletes, where as soon as you're not in the league anymore, the attention on you falls off. But I think they should be leveraging the living shit out of their public profile and building an influencer, as an influencer, as a content creator, because they have such a compelling, like, we all want to know what's going on behind the scenes. And I've seen most of it, and it's not that exciting, but you still want it.
It's just like, I had a conference call with an amazing influencer guru, Brittany Hennessy, and she wrote the book Influencer that kind of changed how I looked at my entire social media. And Jake's having some trouble with the chair over there. Anyways, and she even said people are nosy. I think I was going to touch on this earlier too, especially women that I talk to, like even my friends who are beautiful, strong, confident women still have this fear when it comes to social media, especially the non-millennials of, but if I put this out there, who cares about, what I'm decorating my room like? And timer. And everyone does.
I do.
Like, how many times you sit there and scroll through and you see the mundane things that make you engaged in a person.
And you may not respond or even say anything about it, but you make a mental note. What I love is I hate small talk. I hate seeing friends I haven't seen in a year. I just want to move. Like, I don't need to tell you about, the little things. Like, I just want to know that you're doing amazing. Like, I want to know your favorite thing that you're doing right now. What are you most passionate about?
Right.
And I want to tell you about mine. And let's just get into it.
Yeah.
But it's how are you? Oh, I'm pretty, that I hate that. Social media, one of the best things for me is that it eliminates most of that. I already know that.
Yeah.
Not in a nasty, snarky way, but no, I'm with you, bud.
Yeah.
I've been watching your whole shit.
That's been amazing to me. Like the mundane type of things that I'll put on my stories and things that, like, as I get more comfortable, just utilizing the platform more and more, people will be like, oh, I saw that this and this and this. And I'm like, I guess you would. Like, I had no idea. But I think when it comes down to putting yourself out there, it does kind of feel a little bit unnatural. But what it's done for my brand and it's what it's exposed it with my passions has been very surprising.
Yeah.
Like, just finding out that now I love creating content with you. I love doing projects and collaborating with brands and coming up with cool ways to incorporate all the things I'm excited about, whether that's music, writing, a new restaurant opening in Seattle, and being able to have complete control to be like, this is what I'm pumped about right now.
Yeah.
And how can I make somebody else excited about it? Or what can I do to help someone else in this position?
There's a bit of a negative, like, you're oversharing everything. You only show your success. Or you only do like that vibe. And I don't really, like, we all do that with everything. No one likes a picture of themselves that isn't a pretty good picture. And I think, like, part of the reason, like, I have to get over, I wear a suit to work a lot. And I love a good suit. I love a pressed shirt, like the whole thing. I love it. But I would much prefer to be in a sweatshirt and sweats at home. And like when we do these podcasts, hard to do.
Oh, it's my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's like hard to do all of that and then be like, if we're going to put these up on YouTube, I feel like I should dress up a little bit, but that feels inauthentic. Like, I think just like letting your guard down and saying, hey, people will accept you for who you are.
Absolutely.
And what people don't like is the fake, like, hi, I'm Susie Homemaker. My life is perfect. And they show that stuff all the time. That's boring. If you document your real life and show some of the struggles, and I think the same thing with the company, like there have been a few things we've talked about or like objectives that are in front of us that we're trying to hit or milestones that I've gotten calls from shareholders and saying, hey, if you need anything, I have a connection here, here, and here, or I think this would be a great opportunity for the company. And those are things that we never would have known if we wouldn't have just been honest about, hey, here's a challenge. We're going to Florida and we need some more talent down there. And a hypothetical, but if somebody came in and said, hey, I'm there 6 months out of the year and I'm retired and I've got a degree in this and I've been doing this for 30 years. Like those are the kind of things that if you're being authentic, people won't turn away and be like,
no, like they don't have it together.
Yeah, they
have
think they're hot shit. That's my thing is everyone thinks, they think they can have a vlog and multiple YouTube channels and the company has their own. That's what I was going to ask you is what, being a strong male that you are, what are kind of your hesitations or fears with just putting yourself out there in a social media platform and in platforms like this? Like,
because we know the importance and the value of it.
Oh, it's huge.
But what is your kind of hesitation with it? Because with girls, it's, well, I have a zit and my hair looks weird. And for me, it's, I've gained 4,000 pounds because I'm 100 months pregnant. And anyways, what are yours?
It's a little bit presentation and being polished. Like when I was with Pioneer, like we went through media training, so we were trained, with not a ton of media training, but I took it seriously. I think some of the guys thought it was a joke, but we would do a lot of like in class training, and they brought in professionals. And so the idea there was that we were clearly speaking, always polished and representing the brand. And for me, like I do take a lot of pride in the brands and how they're presented. I have employees that are listening right now, or people that used to work for me for years. I'm like, oh my God, they used to micromanage even what we could say to the customers, and would get upset with us for giving out dates or timelines of things that we weren't ready to share yet. And so I've always controlled the narrative really tightly. And this is a forum where you just don't really get to do that.
Right.
Or you're walking in, like the thought of, like, oh, what I'm wearing now? Why am I in a suit talking about something as mundane as this? Like, does he get dressed up in a suit to do the dishes?
Right.
Obviously I do not, but it's caring about that stuff way too much. The details. Like, I want it to be perfect. I hate that we have 3 different kinds of cameras recording us right now, because when we switch camera angles in the videos, like, there's definitely a change in quality.
That exactly what you just described is my favorite thing about these platforms. Like, I always feel like the first take I record something or sing something is usually the best. If I overthink or try to perfect it, I can't. It doesn't come across authentic because I'm like thinking about it.
You did the one that was real, and now the rest, all the rest of them are just a copycat. Yeah. So that's what I like, and I'm getting more and more comfortable with sharing more of that and getting over the fact, like, well, people don't care, if I'm already putting that out there. Yeah. But that's my favorite part. Well, I think it's not really part of what we're talking about right now, but it kind of ties in, like, talking to anyone that's listening right now. Like, every single person has something interesting in their lives. And so the idea with social media that I think screws a lot of people over, us included, you shoot too broad for what your audience is. So if you're into Mustangs and you're going to do a YouTube channel, don't do a YouTube channel about Mustangs, because there's a lot of those and a lot of people following, but focus in on one subset. If you like Fox bodies or you like 70s Mustangs, like, identify that and then talk about specifically what you're doing, because there's a huge audience for it. I mean, there are audiences for people that like, having more than 5 cats, enjoy knitting, and addicted to this television show. Right. And like, you will get a laser focused audience they'll go to war with you. And so part of our issue was, and what we've learned, and what I want to do is make sure that, like, we're not just throwing out these, like, oh, everybody should do this. Like, I think everyone should do it, because even my mom is a great example. She's probably never heard a podcast and doesn't know where to find one. And she's tech savvy. Like, she gets what's going on. But I've said a few times, like, my mom, before it's all said and done, will have her own YouTube channel or one for her business, where they're going and looking and touring these houses as they're being built. Absolutely. And it's one of those things where I don't think people that didn't know how to turn on their camera realized, just like my grandmother never thought she'd have an iPhone. Right. Yeah. She's 85, 86. And my 73-year-old dad is talking about his friends with YouTube channels and blogs and vlogs. Vlogging. I was like, where did you learn that word? Because he's like, what GoPro should he get here? And like, we talk about drones all the time. Like, I think he's a great example. And these are war veterans. And that's his group. Those are his people. Totally. And so these are a bunch of old pilots that are now going back to the countries that they fought in and capturing the experience. And you don't think that's interesting? I guarantee you there's 10% of the people listening right now, they're going, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Absolutely. Because it's really genuine. So I would just push everyone to figure out, what is your favorite thing you do, and start a podcast. Like, literally send me a direct message and I'll give you, $200 worth of stuff you can buy and have a really good sounding podcast. I think everyone should be doing it, because I want to hear it. Right. I'd rather listen to that than and I listened to Howard Stern forever when I was logging, 100,000 miles a year and driving around for Pioneer. And I would much rather listen to all of my friends telling me stories about the things that they're most passionate about. Absolutely. Like, I'll take that. Well, for me, I've been really surprised what it does internally. I think when you consistently push your comfort zone and you consistently thinking about what kind of memories am I collecting? What do I want to look back on, especially with this baby and things like that?
looking at documenting. I've obviously been putting it out there that I'm pregnant, but I didn't want to be like the girl that talks about being
Pregnancy
pregnant all the time. And now I'm seeing like just how big of a market, how many people care about pregnancy, and not just that, but pregnancy products, the journey, what are you getting for your nursery, all these things.
It's like last night we went to the hospital with a little bit of a scare, and we didn't want to post anything about it in case it was a legitimate issue. But that's the one thing I've mentioned. I've told 2 people, hey, I'm going to be I'm starting a little late today because we had a long night. And when I met with Abe, and I mentioned it, and he went, oh my God, like that was like, stop all conversations about work. Let's not talk about, what we came here to do. What happened there?
Yeah.
And so it's something that carries a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, like all of the positives of it also carry a lot of weight.
Right.
But there's something narcissistic about talking. I've almost not said anything. I think that I've got people in my life, like people that worked for me, that just found out like 2 weeks ago that you're pregnant.
Yeah. Because our social media has very little overlap. The people that follow you and interested in yours don't care about fashion products or, necessarily. Or just. And
I do a poor job with mine is really like hobbying. I like doing photography and videography. Like that's what mine is for me. But I understand that is not going along the lines of what I actually believe. I'm not an expert, but I believe I'm getting very, very talented.
I think you're too hesitant with it. I think you have let's just talk about how great each other are at each other for an hour.
If they'll listen, we'll just, keep going.
That's where I think what excites me about being married to you is I will push you. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just do it. Like, you're fine. And you'll push me out of the kind of wallowing self-pity, like, I'm never going to reach this huge goal.
I think you're making it sound like you like carried this. This was like once a year you'd go into like a, man, this is frustrating.
Oh, so there was a point there. So what I've loved going back, a long time ago.
12 minutes, yeah, whatever.
What I've loved and what has been the most motivating, utilizing social media, learning about the influencer platform, is the analytics.
Yeah.
And the direct resource to people that will tell you their opinion. So if I do a blog about pregnancy versus a blog about why you need to have a good photographer as a musician, like who is getting value from that? And then how can I adjust my future content to make sure that people are getting the most amount of value? And seeing what songs have traction, what people like about what songs, as opposed to just, did you listen to my song or not?
Yeah.
So it's been so much fun, and seeing those analytics and those, it just gives me a path. And I feel like I didn't have that before.
Who you could shout, you can hand somebody a business card, you can download it onto their phone. We have people we see at the bar, and like on Mercer Island, so, they come everyone not flocking, but they definitely. There's a couple of places where they all know Susan sings and have come to some shows, and they understand that, like in their world, like I think when you know a lot of musicians, if you're not at the Grammys doing something huge, it's kind of like, we're still working on it, on my career. But to most people, like if you play the biggest venues in the city and they go to a show and they see hundreds of people there, they think, holy shit, like this is a real deal here. So my point is, like, there are people that have even like will come up to you multiple times, and I've seen you download the song onto their phone and hand it back to them, and they'll come back and like, oh, when you putting some new music out? It's like you're not even paying attention.
Totally.
So the analytics online of saying, why would I try to get his attention over and over again when I can do something over here and I can clearly see who's responding to it?
And it's just such a relief for me to at least have some sort of like blueprint, and then just to get that feedback and to know I'm not wasting my time. And I was going to say something, and then it floated away.
The fleeting pregnancy thought moments.
It happens all the time. That every time that we just did a YouTube trailer the other night and explained what my YouTube channel is about. And so I'm looking at that, and every time I do one of these things that seems very like kind of self-explanatory or not necessarily necessary, I look at it and I'm like, of course we need this.
Yeah.
Because I remember that there was a lot of, when I worked at the radio station, I'd corner all the record label reps and be like, so what do you look for in an artist? And who do you sign? And they all told me the same thing, like, especially since labels have no money, like, there's no artist development. There's no, like, we're going to take you and make you a star. It's, what have you already created and done that has traction, and what is your influence
How
over
can we
your
put
people?
gas in the tank on a
Absolutely.
vehicle that's already driving down the road?
Yep. And so I remember saying, well, I can't get started. Anyways, it's like a chicken before the egg situation. But now there's no excuse for any musician, artist, anything to not have your whole portfolio, your whole everything that you are the most proud of should
Photographers that say they hate Instagram they're done.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That you have to, like, you can't, that's the greatest portfolio template you could ever create.
And it's free.
It's free. It's so ridiculous to me.
So every time that I put the time and effort into building those, like, here is all of my music stuff. Here is all of my writing stuff. Here's an explanation of who I am and what I do. It's like, why would I expect anybody who would be a good, collaboration fit, whether it's brand or
How would they even know if they're a
how
good
would they
fit?
even know? And so I think
It's a book with no context.
yes. So to get past that,
Context?
like a book with no title,
I was thinking of chapter of contents.
table of contents.
Ooh, we'll cut that out.
No, you gotta leave it. You gotta leave it.
It's like a book with no table of contents.
Yes. Yeah, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So, and I'm still not even there. Like being that I've said this a lot, but I'm not like a young millennial. I've had to read a ton and research a ton and ask people who know more about it than me. And it's exciting because every time I learn more about it, I realize, oh my gosh, I didn't know enough about this before.
But what about the people that are listening right now? They're going, well, I don't care about social media. Like, I literally don't. Like, I like fishing and doing that. I think I'm asking the question and I have an answer for them, but I want to know, like, I think if you were listening to this podcast after the first few and say, well, what is this? Is the whole thing about we should all just be doing social media all the time?
I think what it comes down to and what excites me, I've used this avenue, and what it's brought out in me is to believe in my passions. If I can't go to someone and say, hi, I'm a singer, hi, I'm an artist, hi, I'm an X, what makes them think that, like, why should they believe me if I don't believe myself? So it's allowed me to really dig into what I love and establish myself as those things first and believe it so other people will,
See, I think that everybody has a talent. Like they have something that they're passionate about.
Something that's unique to offer.
Exactly. And so it's not about social media and doing it. It's because social media is free. And there's so many people that could potentially turn their favorite thing in life into their life. And so if you're a bodybuilder or you like lifting weights, but you've kind of tinkered around and you don't know if you're an expert, you're a lot better than I am. You know what I mean? Like you've got something to teach me about it. Or if you were out of shape and you got in and you don't think you're yet in good enough shape to be it, that's the trainer I want to hear from.
Right.
I want to talk about somebody on their journey, not some guy that's ripped to shreds and posting 500 pictures a day with this, his pubic region hanging out because he's flexed up. Like, and I'm good for you. You're working hard, but I want the back end. I want the struggles. I want the process.
It's what makes shows great. It's that emotional human interaction of, like, overcoming obstacles. The most successful stories on social media are those of people who document a difficult journey for them.
And it's not expose all your weakness. It's just that I know so many people that you have friends that would like to open up their own boutiques. Like, they're really great in fashion. Where I'm not talking about your stylist because she's in New York doing her own thing, but locally, like we have some friends that would do it. And I think all the time, well, you have a zero barrier of entry. Like, it's not there. You could literally start tomorrow and say, hey, just pick a friend who's wearing an outfit and say, if you tied a knot on the bottom of your thing and use this belt and sent them a link, you're in.
Yeah.
Like you've helped your first client. And the next time is say, hey, shoot me a picture when you're in the dressing room and I'll answer it. Do it for 10 people. By the time you get there and say, hey, listen, for $20 a month, any one of you can text me anytime you're trying on clothes and I'll give you feedback from me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of girls that say,
I would do it.
I don't want her opinion. Who is she to say that she is? Fine, move along. But there's somebody that will. There's a girl in your office that always thinks your desk looks cute. And if you just said, hey, shoot me a picture of your workspace and I'll tell you what should be moved around. I mean, it's stupid little things like that.
I would definitely do it.
But they'll sit around and talk about for 5 years if they, how much money they'd need to open up a store and all the things. Say, listen, this is the only time I know of in history where you can take your shot right now for whatever the cost you've already sunk into your phone.
Yeah.
it's just that is what it is to me is social media. It doesn't have to be social media.
No.
But that is an avenue right now. It's not going to be free forever. And we're already seeing, like, honestly, I don't know that people understand. Those of you with small businesses, or you're marketing yourselves on Facebook, or you've got a great music video that you're trying to put out, it is not going effing anywhere unless it's got a sponsorship behind it. And if you are not using the ad services and sponsoring the posts, like, it's just not going to go anywhere.
Right.
It's not as free as it was before. And people are like, I don't want to pay to have to seem like
but the organic engagement is like nothing.
You've got to pay now to make sure your mom sees your music video. It's true.
Yeah.
It gets algorithm out. And so it's not going to get there. And so when a lot of you go, oh, well, how come no one's paying attention? First of all, 7 people watching a video that's 8 minutes long is a lot of time spent by 7 people. And I think that most people don't realize, like, the numbers. Like, sometimes I'll look at one of your videos, if we don't push it at all or even announce it, like, it just sits there and it'll have like 26 views. And it's beautifully done, and it's really well, like, the song is great or the content is great. But how would anyone know it's there? It's just like you singing, at home, or being at your high school and saying, every person in the high school could all call everyone they know and tell them about you, and it wouldn't really change. We've people who've been on billboards across the country, and you'll see them, and they'll mention their show, and everyone goes, "Oh, I didn't know you were on tour." What? I spent millions of dollars. I put ads everywhere to make sure the whole world knows I'm on tour, and you don't even know it, and you're my friend. Like, maybe I saw something about it,
Right.
That happens all the time. So I think just accepting that, hey, no matter who's listening, big or small, and I'm talking to myself mostly right now, because I get super frustrated about, I was worried that these podcasts were going to be listened to like 9 people, and I'd go, well, I know they listened, and one of those is probably me, and I know your mom probably, you know what I mean? And I count those people up and go, I should just have them over for dinner,
That sounds fun.
But the fact that the response has been there, and we've got some of the analytics, there are so many people already listening. Like, it's really exciting for me, but it sucks that it takes, seeing that, 400 or 500 people have heard this, or X amount of hours have been listened to do it again. Like, it's one of my favorite things. Every time these headphones come on, I get in front of the mic, like, I ramble till I'm.
Exactly. And I'm going to cut off your ramble right here, because I think what it comes down to, like, the nuts and bolts of it, and why we get so excited and passionate about it, is because I think we both have shared a goal, a lifelong goal. I was like, I don't want to do a job that I hate. I don't want to go to I don't think I'm capable of doing a job every day that doesn't feel purposeful. It doesn't excite me. And I don't want to, I always try to live my life backwards. So if I were to die tomorrow, am I doing everything that I wished I would have done if I had the time? Because we never know. So I think what's exciting about it is, what are you doing today to make sure that you love what you do? You do your job, you spend the most time out of your life working. Like, why would you not want it to be something of value? And I think I get so frustrated, and it could be a personality thing. There are some people who are like, I like my job. I'm going to stay there for 20 years. I think most people getting laid off is the greatest thing that ever happens to people. Yeah. You get pushed off a ledge and find out that you climb back up, and you climbed 10, stories higher than your last job. It's amazing. And the illusion of fear that we all believe. And that was holding me back in the day too, because I'm like, well, I can't do this and I just had all these excuses, as opposed to being like, what can I do? What can I create that's exciting and that's fun for me to work hard on? And I just feel like a lot of people just think, well, I can't just quit. Yes, you can. Yeah. Who's saying that you can't do that? I mean, you can, for under $100, you can file, with the Secretary of State, start your own business and order business cards and start doing it. And I think there's photographers and musicians are the worst, because they've been running a business almost their entire life and never go through the process of actually setting up a business to do it. And so there's a ton of showmanship that happens in the music industry. And a lot of times, like, if a sync deal isn't available, or you want to submit music, they've never even filled out documentation to actually create a company to write off any of the expenses that they have, and they're almost not usable. And that's where I feel like someone like you at 22 is wondering, like, why haven't I made it? And the label comes along and says, well, because there's somebody who has a voice just like yours,
They look very similar, and it's not that everyone isn't unique. I believe that more than anyone. But
there's
they can
talented
put
people
someone. Yeah, they're everywhere, and so it's going to be the ones that take the initiative to form an LLC and actually start setting up a business and have all of the four sheet, the split sheets on the on with producers and writers on their music, and actually own their masters. And a lot of times there's really great songs that we had a song that went. Got a major sync deal. There was hundreds of millions of dollars spent marketing the song, and a lot of money made from it. I've referenced it a little bit on the podcast, but if you don't have that all properly set up, they can't even pick that song up.
Right.
They're not going to risk getting sued by somebody over a dispute on who has the rights to it. So it's setting up the business and being in a position where labels and money can actually come at you. And I think there's so many. So my question to you is this. At 24 years old, somebody walks up and says, here's a contract. We're going to pay for, we're going to send you down to Ocean Avenue. You're going to cut a record with the best and the brightest. And we're going to have 3 features with major artists. Here it is. Here's your contract. Do you think obviously you would want that. Do you think you were at all ready for it?
Absolutely not. I think I was still so naive and so green. And I think I would have it would have fizzled out, and I think I would have been in a worse place than I am now. Just given, again, believing that illusion that these people had the answer, or that this was the thing that was going to finally make everything make
come
sense
together,
and
right?
Come together.
But it's no different than when someone says, "Hey, I want to open up a boutique or a coffee shop or do this," and you say, "Okay, how much money do you need to do it?"
Yeah.
You're at the dinner table with there's enough people here that could make this dream happen right now. And what is the plan? What do you have in place? And it's then it's over, right? If you're not ready to, if you aren't setting the stage to succeed, how can I help you get there? But most people will leave that dinner table. They'll be excited that there was an offer on the table, but that offer is done.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. You haven't taken it far enough. But the idea then that people are waiting for all of the stars to align for them. And I used to have this idea that greatness follows you. Everyone's searching for greatness. I want to be great. I want to do something amazing. And I don't mean that could just mean being an amazing parent. That's one of my primary goals, is being having a relationship that is just brutally honest with my sons, to-be sons, that they know they can come to me with anything because I am going to be totally honest with them. And so it doesn't have to be about making billions of dollars. It can be about anything in life. But I think the actually having a plan. What am I doing to make sure I have that relationship? Am I reading books? Am I being open? Am I thinking from the perspective of a 6-year-old and actually putting in the work to be able to do that thing that I want so much? And I think most people don't do it. They've got excuses as to why now's not the right time. And the whole point of that for me is you're not going to be great unless you lead yourself to greatness. You've got to set the stage. You've got to take the initiative, and the great things will come from you actually having the courage and the commitment to do it.
But if you don't have that vision, you can't expect a stranger to come along and give you that.
In fact, you're a fool if you do.
I think that you would like to create this really great thing. And so let me help you create this thing that you haven't verbalized to me.
I get that with a lot of people that have worked for me over the years or with our team is I was expecting. If you think I'm going to pick you and assign you something that would be beneficial to the company over the person who saw it coming and got there before it was even a known problem, we see those little things, and it's not that we definitely nurture people through. And there's people on the team that were brought in as delivery drivers that will hold executive titles before it's all said and done, and probably supplant me at some point. And so we definitely are supporting everyone across the platform, but it's the people that see a problem and make it go away and don't come running to you to say, "Oh, remember this one?" They're or "I told you I was capable of doing this." I saw it.
Yeah.
Do it again. And pretty soon I won't have any choice but to make sure you're included in everything that's there.
That's one thing that I think you are truly amazing at, is you are at times kind of harsh with your employees, but you
took a little minute on that.
You are so brutally honest with them about what's not working and what they would need to do to develop certain skill sets that they need to move forward. And to see people's response to that is pretty odd. I think that's what makes you such a good leader, because you come at them with the honesty, but you're kind about opportunity.
And I think there's people listening right now that would say, I don't get as much feedback from him as I like. You're getting the feedback. You're getting the feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, and part of it is because if you really want what I'm trying to do is build a multi-billion-dollar company, and I have zero doubts in my mind that is what's ahead of us. Not because of me, because of the team and because a lot of the brands and frankly, I'm just not going to stop until it gets there. But at the same time, there are people who, things get hard and they deviate or they'll shift gears and focus on something else. And part of it is for me is saying I treat employees like family, like you're in, right? When you become a part of the inner circle, you're there. Now, it doesn't mean we have to stay loyal. We have to work together forever, but they're like, every person that's ever worked for any of the companies I've ever had, because I've had every one of those jobs, is important to me. And like, I still remember names of people who'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe I worked there for 6 months.
Yeah.
But I try to learn from every person and see what they do well. And when people cycle through and kind of check out or don't step up, I'm not going to throw them to the curb, but I'm also not going to bring them any further along in the project than where they are at that moment.
You know what I think is, another thing that I see you do that I've learned from is I used to get really bummed on like little small failures along the way. And I don't think I've ever seen you be upset about a deal not going through or something not going as you planned. And there's this amazing book called The 7 Decisions by Andy Andrews. And one of the exercises in it is you write down all your biggest failures. And I remember we both did this.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite stories.
And you see it, he asks you what came out of those failures. And most of the time, the biggest failures reap the biggest rewards. But that's something that I've learned a ton from you, is just understanding like failure does not exist. It's something that you try, that you learn from, and then go a different direction to make it work. And I think your employees that have been with you and your team, they develop that as well. And it becomes this like, okay, it's a creative exercise as opposed to like, shoot, well, that didn't go as we wanted, and kind of feel upset about it.
I think they kind of think that I'm like Superman, where it's like, it doesn't bother me. And like, I just on to the next, almost like delusional in that, hey, we just took a big L right here, or this didn't go as planned. A couple of the early Pubco deals, like had we done those deals, I look at what they're doing now and the people they brought on and what the focus is. And I just think, they're playing a game for money here and now. They're trying to raise capital, and they are going to be gone so fast.
And you knew, even when you were kind of, starry-eyed at the beginning when people were coming at you and offering you stuff, and it was really exciting. But I could see you wrestle with it, where you knew something wasn't right.
Yeah. And so I was mad because they didn't see enough to change what they were trying to do to buy in completely to what we were trying to do. I remember getting calls from, I won't say them, but like, if we take this deal, I'm worth $30 million. I'm getting $30 million. And so is so-and-so. And you guys are getting what you're getting. Like, we've got it. This is going to be crazy. And I thought, nothing comes that easy, man.
No.
It's not like, and when you peel back the onion, it wasn't. It was exactly. But I still believed in that deal so much that they understood who I was and what we were doing as a company. Whether we had the revenue that they were looking for or not, I had them so close to saying, you know what, if we just let this kid run with it, it'll go. And they were there for a little while, and then they got caught up in the fundraising side of it, and it became all about how much money they could make immediately and on our backs, that I just kind of thought, we walked from it and didn't lose a blink of an eye.
I remember specifically we were driving.
Didn't lose a blink of an eye.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying.
Who am I to? Yeah. I remember being in the car with you. We were driving somewhere. And you were like, but if I walk away, this person loses money, this person loses money. I remember looking at you.
There were a lot of people that were going to do well in that. Yeah.
And I said, who cares about money? Like, if you say no to this and you continue to take the hard, long road and build what you really want to build and make those people money in the long run, that's really what you want. And I think that was the disappointment, is realizing, this route doesn't lead to where my vision
And
is.
they wanted me to screw over business partners and take a deal that was good for me, and everyone would have gotten paid. But yeah, I think there's still people involved that feel like they might have got the short end of the stick, not even knowing that what was offered to me was really good for us and really bad for a few people. But it was it's been fantastic. But like I'm more, that fueled me more than anything. Like I walked away from that deal thinking, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the third or fourth. And it's not a zero sum game. There's enough for everybody to get theirs. But man, it's going to be fun.
So I was thinking about, this is totally moving on past the topic, but I'm trying to think of, we need questions to ask every guest.
Yes. I
And
think one, we should get some help from you guys. So if you guys have thoughts or ideas on questions we should ask, obviously the channel's called Under the Influence. It's not because it's about drinking and smoking weed and doing all that. I mean, obviously that's the industry I'm in. Obviously the influencer industry is a big part of this and content creation. So it's a great name for what we're doing, but questions, ideas, thoughts around what we can ask guests when they come on. Yeah.
Well, I would love to have some staples that every guest you have to.
It's kind of your thing anyway.
I love questions. I think asking people the right questions is the most fascinating thing to me.
Susan does birthday questions every year where obviously on your birthday, she'll ask questions. You can do it, one-on-one or in front of a group. And it's the same questions every year. And I start to get nervous about 2 weeks before my birthday. It's just one of those things where, it's really a checks and balances thing. And you do it every year. So yeah, the questions are important.
Yeah, I love it. So if you guys have any ideas, but I'll start with, just throw out some example ones on you.
To me?
Yeah.
Okay.
What? Are you ready for
this? Well, I'm glad you didn't tell me because I didn't have any, there was nothing for me to be worried about, but now let's go.
What are you afraid of?
I think you asked me this already, like in one of the other podcasts. I mean,
did I?
Failure's probably my biggest. I mean, failure.
We just talked about how you don't see failure.
No, but and
neither does Oprah.
But I do still fear it.
Yeah.
I think it's like a mountain climber. Like their biggest fear is falling off the side of a mountain and coming down. But who faces their fears more than a mountain climber? Not many people. So I think for me, that's part of the reason why I try to I see, and I think failure to me is totally different than like losing a lot of money in a deal or not getting a transaction that I guess that's the same thing. But I think failure to me is not being able to look at myself in the mirror when I brush my teeth at night and being totally honest with what I put in that day. I think that's failure to me, is looking at myself and say, you didn't try today, or you weren't honest, or you weren't fair with somebody. Being hot tempered, like that's one of the things that I've had to work on over the years. Like I said before, I remember like chasing somebody around the car in a parking lot over a business deal. I was so angry, and the idea that I would let something so trivial get me that worked up now is embarrassing. It's like listening to reading your journal as a teenager. Like, oh my gosh!
Did you keep a journal as a teenager?
I'm so afraid of.
Do you still have those?
I have a couple of them, which is what frightens me, because that means there's a lot more. And like my old high school girlfriend, Angie, she went back to her parents' house and her mom had all the notes, and her mom read every one of them.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait for.
She sent a picture of one, and I read about a third of it and thought, oh my God, please, I beg of you just to burn the damn things.
Oh my gosh, that is. I think what's very surprising about you, kind of, if you can be a little gruff at first, if people don't know you, and not all the time, but my mom said this today, actually. She was like, man, Jake really is so soft-hearted. And I think that's what's kind of fascinating about you, is you can be kind of hot-tempered, and you're hard on people, but you are one of the most thoughtful and kindest people you have. And I always say that you have the artist heart, where you listen to my music and you listen to stuff where I would think more of a business-minded person wouldn't get the depth of it. And you, not saying I'm super deep, but you do. And you listen like that. You have the emotional intelligence and the emotional depth that I feel like would be surprising for people that don't know you very well.
Well, that's very nice. I think that
Seeing you as a dad, especially, you can see.
man, once I had Carter, like I literally cry over everything. It's unbelievable. It can be the smallest, simplest thing, and I love that it's happening to you during pregnancy because I don't think it's going to go away.
It happened after, I think once I got to know Carter and we got engaged, it got real for me. Like just loving somebody so much and just how galvanizing it is to plan a life with somebody. And then you start to see, you know, in every commercial, you start to see those loved ones.
Yeah,
and
it's unreal.
so you ruined me because I was, you know, a little bit more stone cold before that. But yeah, but now it's like 20 times worse. I just cry at everything all the time.
Well, it's almost time to close, but I want to circle back to the music thing just for a minute with you and just kind of tie that all together and really just explain to me, like, unprompted at all, like there's no notes, just like what really were we doing? Like I don't think we knew what we were doing when we started doing a lot of the social media and marketing stuff. And you know, I think like frame it in like what are the steps that we took and like where are you now that you think if you could say these are the 3 things that I would say to anybody who's whether they're selling beauty counter products or one of the other 500 other types of makeup that are being shilled on the internet right now, but like somebody who's there right now or a guy that loves fishing and says, oh, really should I talk about this certain kind of lure, like what is the first thing they should do and like a 2 or 3 like guidelines for them?
The very first thing. And someone said this to me, a photographer said this to me, and I was like, how have I not thought about this before? Is look at your Instagram grid. If somebody went to your Instagram, would they know that you're a singer? Would they know that you're an artist? Would they know that you're a writer? Or would it be like pictures, you know, blurry pictures of your kid and you know, you walking down the street with your friend, like,
and it's okay to have those, but create 2 accounts, right?
Yeah.
Like a musician that wants to be a musician should have an account that's based around their music.
Knowing and kind of knowing social media has categories of where to put what content. And so you have to think of, especially if it's your business Instagram account, you have to think of that as your portfolio. Like, especially now, if you're messaging somebody or emailing somebody and they go to your Instagram, they should instantly tell who you are, what your brand is. So just even starting for me, like being really thoughtful with what I was posting and why, and using those images to promote shows and songs coming out and things like that all tied into the musician realm. So that's where you start, is focus on what do you want people to see, you know, in 5 seconds, and then look at your feed. What do you want them to know? And then I still feel like I've been actively learning and attempting this for over a year. And so I think what I know now is before I'd be like, well, there's so many platforms. I can't engage on all platforms. And I can. It's just you have to know which category things go in and why. You don't want to post one video to all your platforms at the very same time. Like there's a place, even though I really don't like Twitter, I'm not that active on it, but like I know, okay, no, I need to be engaged in. I'm rambling, but knowing what you're using social media for.
Yeah.
Like there's a purpose.
Well, that's why I think if you divide it up into categories, and that's kind of what we've done with Under the Influence, and like this wouldn't be appropriate for Greenlink to post a bunch of personal stuff about our lives on that. So there's a channel for that. But there's people in the Greenlink world that do want to know this stuff as well, that gets a lot of crossover content. And so I can pull stuff from this and post it over there. So I think what people need to do is like just document what's going on.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, and if you don't know where it goes, I think put it on an Instagram story or on the stories on Facebook.
And you don't have to create a big thing. Like you don't have to be like, well, I have to plan a photo shoot. No, you don't. Like,
or you can even record yourself frustrated about not having a photo shoot in place. Like if you just document what you're doing as opposed to trying to create all the time, documenting it is way more authentic anyway. So it's kind of back to that
and
guy.
And that's what makes it the most interesting. If you just see a finished picture, you're like, oh, cool. If you see the people that worked on it, the hiccups along the way, like that's where I feel like somebody told that to me one time.
Told that to me.
So, yeah. That makes sense.
It's kind of weird, but yeah.
Where as opposed to putting out a song, they want to see why you wrote it, the process of making it, who was involved. Because if they watch all of that and they know all of that, when the song comes out, they're sure as shit going to go listen to that song.
Yeah. I feel like I told you that, but
Did you? Maybe you did.
I feel like it's just anytime you create a connection with somebody outside of the content that you're used to providing, you've got them, you know?
Right.
But
And it's just fun. That's
really all it is.
I
right?
love connecting with people that I've had so many awesome conversations, and even some that have started like, hey, I don't like that you did this. And then I say, okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And it ended up being like, well, I really respect you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I respect your feedback. Thank you. And it led to a great connection. So just even opening up dialogue with people I don't know and seeing what their response is to stuff I put out has been really fun. And having like high school girl texting me saying, can you help me pick not texting me, Instagram, like DMing me saying, will you help me pick my prom dress? Like things like that
Susan nicknames like almost all of her students. They all have names. So high school girl is a real person.
Yes. No, she wasn't a student. She was just a rando on Instagram. But I do, but I do nickname most of my students.
I actually thought of a student that you had that was high school girl that's actually now in college, but yeah, totally different thing.
Yeah, it was just some random girl that followed me
Gotcha.
that was like, I need help picking a prom dress. So there's all those little surprises that come up that I'm like, okay, this is I never could have anticipated things like that.
And you love that sort of thing. And that's the point with all of this is not, turn your life into a business and everything on social media should be about a business. But it's really like encouraging every single person that I know. And I'm going to call like Jen that works for me. She's been with us forever. Mm-hmm. She can sew and like make anything. And she's somebody who
she painted people gold and it looked awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. Or she made a cake one time for an employee that like a turntable cake out, just like so cool. Incredible stuff. And I think even she doesn't realize that if she just started documenting some of that stuff and posting, like, I want to see what's going on. Yeah. I think about her like on the weekend, like, what is she making right now? Some crazy weird there. She had
look at Cupcake Wars.
Exactly.
There's a huge market for that stuff.
It's just kind of a push to anyone who is like curious about or interested in talking about something or chasing their passion a little bit. Like if you start to think of your passion as a bit of a business, you will start to gravitate towards that. And that's why I think the whole world's hot for cannabis right now, because whether you're 70 years old or 21 years old, like people really know what's up with pot. Even folks that are against it aren't really that against it. They feel like they need to be for public reasons, but most of them are all the way down with it.
Right.
And I think it's this like collective like unleashing of something that's been bottled up forever that people kind of know is not right. And as it's coming out, there's people that are like, in their mid 70s. Some of our investors a lot of folks are over 70 years old and saying, you know what, enough's enough. And that's basically their Hail Mary of like, let's do this and let's do it now.
Yeah.
I think that is people chasing their passion and like finding they're passionate about investing and the opportunities, but they see the space and they're taking a shot at it. And I think it's cool. We've had some people we've sat down with and I've said, why do you want to do it here? This does not make sense. This is not a great state to be doing this. And they've looked at me and just said, listen, this is important to me that I do it here. Like I want to do it here in my town. So I think that just seeing people that are passionate about what they're doing is something that drives me every day. It's one of my favorite things. And it frustrates the living hell. This podcast is more about not having those conversations with people who are thinking about doing something and saying, for God's sake, please just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Well, now that we're done preaching at everybody.
I think Nike said that at some point or another.
I'm not sure, but I believe.
That's been said before.
Well, I appreciate this podcast has been super fun for me to see. Like, I feel like I'm still learning stuff. We talk all the time, but it's just like putting our nightly convos on.
I think that's the point. Like we're going to laugh at what we don't know about social media and marketing, but I also think there's the vast majority that haven't spent the last year reading every book they can get their hands on. And I mean, we've been calling like the authors of these books and saying, can we talk to you about it? We've been posing the question of, since you've written this book, what has changed? What would you do differently? And like and that's kind of like my style is just to deep deeply engaged with whatever it is that I'm passionate about. And it's become this mission on my part to find a way to market cannabis in a world that doesn't allow it yet, and find a way to build brands that cross over from these regional fragmented representations to a national brand before it's even really allowed. And while the rest of the world is clamoring over who's got, the biggest press release and whether the New York Times is talking about them, we're spreading a grassroots movement that's going to blossom and have people saying, where the hell did that come from? And I'm telling you, it came from the influencer marketing and content creation side. And what we're doing right now is all going to be born out of that. And I couldn't be more excited about it. But to your point, there are a lot of people that will say, what the hell do you guys know? What makes you think you're a year? Wow. I've been in advertising and marketing for 30 years. You're the one I'm afraid of. You're the one that I'm not afraid to compete against. Right? I mean, there's so many marketing firms that I went into and we showed them products that said, you missed the mark. The only people buying pot are this, and this demographic. Yeah, today, because it's $30 a gram and the only people that can afford to pay that are this guy, and this guy. But as the price comes down, as my products do, and they drive the market down, it'll bring in the more traditional customer for cannabis, the everyday user, and we're making products for them. And yes, we're ahead of the market because we understand the market and you don't. And I'm like, this is a little bit of a PSA for kind of what we're doing, but it comes back to the social media and marketing, is that there's always somebody that doesn't know the information that you do. And you feel like you're not entitled to go out and say it or represent something because you feel like maybe you're not the expert and someone else is. I'm telling you, whoever that expert is, if they're not honing their game every day, you can catch them in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So that would be my spin, is just encourage everyone to just do whatever it is they're most passionate about and find a way to make that their living. And I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay. Look at you. Stopped yourself from the ramble. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Keep sending us your suggestions. We've gotten a lot of feedback of like, oh, I like this. And I listened and liked this part. We love that. If you want to hear something in particular, or if you want a specific guest to be on, just let us know, because we're just, doing this for you and for us. But.
Yeah. No, but I think there has not been a day that's gone by since we've done the podcast where there aren't 3 or 4 messages, some days more, obviously right after we put it out. But there's the follow up of, hey, I didn't listen to the first 2, but once Randall was on, I listened to that. Then I went back and listened to the other ones. Like, oh my God, I'm having a lot of fun. And so keep throwing ideas like that. That really does kind of motivate us to do it as well. And the whole thing was about this podcast was not relying on other people to motivate you and not, not waiting around until it's like wildly successful and just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Yep. But
keep it coming. We appreciate it.
Yeah. And the next episode after this is going to be a little bit different. We wanted to put this one in here and kind of just establish more of the foundation of the show a little bit. Next, our next release, our next podcast is going to be with Danielle LaBelle, and she is a historian, but she's not. She's,
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, has a history background, is an attorney, and is very politically savvy. So we had her in to talk a little politics and to talk a little about her background and going into the election cycle. Politics is something that we discuss a lot, just in our lives.
I think mostly just being honest about what we do and don't know, and having somebody on who can say, actually, that's what everybody thinks, but it's actually this, or this person doesn't actually have the authority to make that decision. And so maybe it's not for everybody, but there's a handful of times, like,
it's more educational than opinionated.
Well, that's pretty opinionated.
It's a pretty opinionated, but there's some
even nervous about how opinionated it was at a couple of spots. But so that'll be up shortly, right after this one, and it's a little bit of a lead-in, and we look forward to kind of having both sides of the aisle represented a little bit. But I think it's more of just a general education for those that don't know a lot about it. And right now, I think there's a ton of us out there who wish we probably would have paid a little more attention in civics class and had a little better understanding of the political climate, because it's polarizing right now. So it was kind of, it's a good idea, and I mean, how many people have an attorney who's a history major and just an all-around badass lawyer who can talk to about it from the perspective of someone in law and throughout history? It's a good opportunity to
basically all the questions that I have after watching the news for a week, and I say, Danielle, what about this? What does this mean? Who is this person? And she explains it to me.
Why should I care or not care about this?
I just thought, you know what? I bet other people have these questions too. So it brought her on. So stay tuned for that for next time. Thanks so much for listening. And we'll catch you later.
Take care, guys.